I'm Cecilia, who is, and I'm representing the gender side in this topic. And the first negative speaker, or negative position speaker, mentioned the violation that mandatory, compulsory voting will violate our freedom. And according to Steve Bannon for the NBC News Digital, he mentions that mixed citizens perform actions for the collective benefits of society all the time, from obligations to mandatory jury duty to taxes. And then, because voting is too important to fail to participate, according to Megan Foley, the basis for Megan Foley, who was a speakerman for the White House for years 2010 to 12. The basis of democracy that is for the government. The basis of democracy is that it is the government for the people, of the people, and without its people voting, they won't reflect the intentions of the population. The speaker also mentioned that it's better for a lower turnout because of the uneducated population, that in the case that they will vote, and it's and the fact is that Americans who are higher in economic status are more likely to vote. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, in the 2008 election, 76% of voters who are earning 50,000 or more voted, while only 59% of the Americans who have earned less participated in election day. This portrays the weak representation of the lower middle class. Also, according to Eric Blue, a writer for Time magazines on the topic of mandatory voting, he quotes William Galston from the Brookings Institution that it would tamper the polarization of our politics. Our political leaders would go where the voters are, away from the extremes. They would become responsive to the younger, poorer, and less educated Americans who do not usually vote. And also to counter the uninformed voters, that will lead to a worse policy making. That it presumes policymaking today sets a high watermark of enlightenment. It also sets up a viciously anti-democratic circle that if you do not vote, you must be stupid, and if you're stupid, you mustn't vote. Quoted by also Eric Liu from William Galston. And mandatory voting would promote more Americans pay attention to the choices. A mandate would motivate voters to learn what they were voting on, just as a draft makes a drafted motivate to learn what they're fighting for. Dylan Matthews for Vox on the topic of how Obama suggested making it illegal not to vote, and mentions that more Americans' views are represented in the government, and in particular that minorities and economically vulnerable people would have more of a voice. Both parties would compete for their vote rather than ignoring their needs. And then the negative speaker also mentioned that the increased cost if mandatory voting will come through. Say in the case where mandatory voting will pass, it's actually, according to Harvard Law Review, in the case of compulsory voting, political parties would not spend as much money on their get out to vote efforts, since high turnout will be ensured.